We are here today with Christine Agro. Let her tell you exactly what she does. It's very interesting.
Great, thank you. I have really enjoyed connecting with you, and I love our conversations because what I do is I look at our reality from a metaphysical perspective. So I'm looking at the energetic how to, why, what fors that are behind all the things that are going on day to day, and looking at the lessons that we're trying to learn and the information that we can gather from this. What I love is that we have this dynamic where you're talking about what you see on the physical, and I'm then able to sort of play off of that and give you my insight into what I see going on metaphysically. My work has primarily for the last 12 years been with women. So the information that I have is about what women are working on. What is it that we're doing? What is our evolutionary path about? And how does that affect us physically? How does that affect us emotionally? How does that affect our role in the world? And what's been going on in terms of the women's evolution? So I came up with the term of calling myself the metaphysical feminist.
Well, how did you get started on this journey?
I really believe we all have this ability. We all have some kind of higher sense, higher awareness. It's just whether or not we choose to access it this lifetime, and it's really has to do with whether or not it was encouraged in us. But my grandmother, she used to tell me stories about the visions that she had. She was a very religious woman, and so she contextualized all of this as visions that were divined. And I think in those stories, I was given the permission to continue to have this information. And there, along my life, there were always these moments of great insight. And it wasn't until I, about 12 years ago, when I walked away from a job as a director of development for a not-for-profit organization. I'd been doing that for about 10 years, that I really started to embrace the ability that I had, which I had had all along. I mean, women were constantly in my office asking me questions, relationship issues, work issues, what do I do about this? How do I deal with this person? And what was happening was that I had to stay after work to actually get my work done. And so as I was evolving through this information, I finally realized where, my true focus and passion is one, in helping women to step into their full empowerment and to really create the lives that are, I think, rightfully ours, without this notion or need to feel like we have to be fighting all the time. And, and then just to continue to look at the metaphysics of why are we here and what are we doing? Because I find it fascinating.
What are some of the trends you're kind of seeing with the women you've been working with over, say, the last 5 years, 10 years?
One of the most fascinating things that I've been seeing shifting for women is this shift from how we do our healing work. And this does also tie into my information that I talk about quite often, which is the difference between the masculine principle and the feminine principle. And masculine principle has nothing to do with being man or male or in a male body. It's really an energy construct that we have been living in forever. It is what has basically guided and structured everything from our laws to religion up until this point. And now we have this opportunity to start to maybe do it a different way, which is kind of exciting. So backtracking, what I've noticed is that women are moving from this place, or have an opportunity to move from this place of being a healer by actually running the energy right straight through us, which is very tiring. It's hard on the physical body. So the shift that's happened is that we're moving towards no longer doing it that way. And so tying this into the masculine principle, that is the outward directed energy. It's what's going on out here, and our attention and focus being outside of ourselves and being addressed to how do I help or support in this dynamic. The feminine principle is an inward focused energy. It's what do I do to change my reality, and how does that ripple out into everyone else's world? So going back to this healer notion, the opportunity that we have as women is to no longer do the work for other people and run it straight through us as a clearinghouse, but to focus on our own growth and healing and be an example to everybody else as to how they can do it. So it's a completely different dynamic. But what I love about this shift is that it really does describe or paint a portrait of what is possible in terms of living in the masculine principle or living in the feminine principle. Because that idea of inward focus, of being focused on your own growth, healing, information, shifting, what it means to you and how does it affect your own life, and then watch it ripple out, is really the energy that we can all be living in. I think that's one of the most common things that I see. And then, I see a lot of commonalities in our relationship spaces and where we give our power away. But again, that's that outward directed of energy. Idea that our sense of self comes from how other people see us, comes from what other people tell us, comes from the raise that we get or the position that we hold. And again, when you turn the energy inside and you come from a more feminine principle, looking at, well, I'm going to validate myself. I'm going to know that I am worth everything, that it doesn't matter what this person thinks. What matters is what I think. And that's not a new idea, but actually being able to guide women to that place is phenomenal to watch them shift and change.
Well, that actually brings up a good question. For someone who wants to make that change, what's a good way to start?
Well, I have a lot of tools. I call them tools, tools to live by. Because I do think that our growth in this lifetime is experiential. It's not... The place that, again, we're moving from is gathering in our mental body all of this information. So reading a book and having this information of like, oh, yeah, I know what that means. That doesn't change anything. That is, that's like maybe the first step in terms of walking into or stepping into creating change in your life. But you have to go beyond that to actually having some kind of experiential learning process that lets you assimilate what you know and connect it to your physical body so that you can have change. So there's a lot of different things. One thing is just really having the awareness of where your focus is. You'll draw yourself a picture of the difference between outward focused energy. So here's you, and this idea of energy going out versus energy staying inside, right? So you have a visual, or if you work well with energy itself, the concept of energy, the idea of calling your energy back either at the end of the day or some cases like every 5 minutes, depending on how ingrained you are in this process of giving it all away. And I can tell you, as women, it is so fatiguing to be constantly giving your energy away to people, whether it's listening to the friend who has the problem and they just want to dump it all in your lap. That's the running the energy through you. And what happens is that you take that energy, now you've got to deal with it. And I can guarantee you that person's going to go on to the next person and dump the same energy. They're just in this loop where they're sharing their energy, their heavy kind of soggy energy with anyone who will listen, because that's how they're being validated.
In some of our previous chats, I thought it was interesting how you said, although you work with women, the femininity and the masculinity is not just a part of being female.
Yeah, it's I think it's so important, and it's such rich information if people can take that. I think it's a little step to really understand the difference. And so what I started posting on Facebook, in addition to examples of what I'm talking about, what typifies a masculine energy principle and what typifies a feminine energy principle, I started posting cultures, healing modalities, any place where throughout history, there has been a representation of the masculine and the feminine, what, energetically, physically. And, they all talk about the presence within the physical form of both the masculine and the feminine energy. In yoga, in Ayurvedic medicine, in traditional Chinese medicine, what you'll find is that the left side of the body is traditionally assigned to the feminine principles. It's inward focused, it's introspective, it has a collaborative nature. The right side is connected to the masculine energy, which is your outward focus, your external presentation in the world, how you connect to the world, how you interact with the world. So left side is about how you treat yourself, how you nurture yourself. And so like in yoga, if you do tree pose, if you can stand on the right side and not fall over, you know that you've got a strength within the masculine energy. And then if you all of a sudden fall over when you do it on the left side, you know you're not balanced. You know that the left side, you're not nurturing yourself, you're not supporting yourself, you're not funneling that energy in, and of course vice versa. So, on the very physical, all of these modalities have been about finding this balance within and bringing these two energies together to create a whole. Some people talk about this as the twin flames, the combining of the masculine and the feminine spinning together and creating this tremendous power. So one of my favorite things to talk about is microcosm of the macrocosm. So always there is the small workings of all of this, and then there's the large universal working of all of this. So within ourselves, we're working on finding this balance, or we have been working on finding this balance, men and women. Now, on the larger scale, the macrocosm, we have been heavily, if we were to stand as a collective, we would be falling way to the right. Masculine principle completely out of control. And so what I have been talking about with the feminine principle is not bringing it into balance, it's reviving it. Because we haven't even been really touching on the feminine energetic principle in our collective, in the world. And I'm really excited about where we're at and what we have the potential to create, especially as women, because, although men and women have this energy and men can certainly embrace the feminine principle, we come by it more naturally because it is who we are as an energetic structure. And we did choose to be women this lifetime. That's a concept that sometimes people go, what? But before we came in as spirit, we look at the whole game plan and we say, well, what do I want to do this lifetime? What do I want to work on? How do I want to work on it? And part of that is choosing what kind of form you're going to take. And it's all part of the giant evolution of the collective. But I like this idea that we can gather many of us to really embrace this feminine principle and work on ourselves while we ripple out and create change.